In the heart of a high-end kitchen, one chef kept their head down, did the work, and followed every rule. But when a new boss arrived, full of hate, privilege, and power, what started as subtle jabs turned into sabotage, threats, and violence. Instead of snapping back, they documented everything. Every insult, every shove, every lie. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for every worker silenced by fear. With allies by their side and evidence in hand, they exposed a system that had protected abusers for years. And when the truth finally came to light, it changed everything. Justice wasn't just served, it was plated perfectly. Was it enough to fix the system or just enough to survive it? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe in dignity, truth, and second chances, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. Devin wiped the edge of the cutting board with one smooth stroke, eyes flicking to the clock above the industrial fridge. The kitchen was still dark except for the strip of fluorescent light over the prep station, humming like it always did before service came alive. This was Devin's sanctuary, the quiet before the storm. In the stillness, everything made sense. The knives were sharpened, the herbs rinsed and picked, the mise-en place prepped with surgical precision. There was no music, no talking. Just the soft rhythm of the walk-in cooler cycling and the occasional crackle of oil in the fryer as it woke. Devin had been sous chef at Palette and Stone for nearly 4 years. It was the kind of place where plating required tweezers and critics could make or break your career. Devin had earned every inch of that kitchen, their station spotless, their timing impeccable, their calm under pressure legendary. They weren't loud or flashy or interested in gossip. But when something went sideways on the line, the team turned to Devin. Always. At 32, Devin had survived more than a few bad kitchens and worse managers. They didn't advertise their personal life. Didn't need to, people made assumptions as people do, but Devin didn't flinch. They had their sister Maya finishing her junior year at college thanks in part to Devin's help. They had rent paid on time, a car that didn't break down anymore, and a job that gave them purpose. What they didn't have was tolerance for drama. That's why the last few months had felt uneasy. Executive Chef Martina had been a rare kind of leader, gritty, fair, always too busy to care about anything but food. Devin had respected her. When Martina left for a consulting gig in Seattle, the kitchen changed. Quiet whispers, nervous glances. A new name floated around in manager meetings, Rick Halberd. Rick came from New York. 2 Michelin stars, big personality, bigger ego. Word was he ran a tight ship. Devin had heard that before. It usually meant yelling, bullying, and a kitchen culture built on fear, not skill. This morning, the official email hit. Please welcome Executive Chef Rick Halberd, who joins us this week to oversee our new seasonal menu launch. Devin stared at it while mincing garlic. That meant Rick would be in the kitchen today, watching, measuring, maybe even testing people. By 7:00 a.m., the kitchen had begun its transformation. Line cooks filed in. Jules, the pastry chef, brought the smell of croissants with her. Andre Grill slapped Devin's back and said, "Betty's a screamer, they always scream." Devin didn't respond. They just turned up the flame under the veal stock and set up the herb rack exactly how Chef Martina had liked it, everything in its place. That was the only armor that worked. Rick arrived at 7:43. Early but not too early, he walked in like he owned the place. White, mid-40s, hair combed tight, Chef White's too clean, polished shoes. His voice was louder than it needed to be as he shook hands with the restaurant manager. Then his eyes landed on Devin. "You the sous?" he asked, looking them up and down like an old meat order. "Yes, chef," Devin said, wiping their hands on their apron and extending one. Rick didn't take it, just gave a tight nod and moved past, strike one. The next hour was a whirlwind. Rick barked orders about reorganizing the fridge layout, criticized the cut on the fennel even though it was textbook, and demanded to know why the shallots were stored that way. Devin responded to everything professionally. "Chef, that's per our SOP. Chef, Martina preferred it that way. Chef, I can adjust if needed." But Rick wasn't looking for answers. He was establishing territory. By lunch, he hadn't called Devin by name once. "Only you or hey." He'd referred to a junior cook as the girl with the septum ring and scowled every time Jules mentioned her wife. But nothing was technically over the line, just tone, microaggressions, looks that lingered a little too long, questions that had nothing to do with food. "So, you always been they, or is that a Portland thing?" he'd asked while reviewing plating techniques. Devin didn't blink. "I go by they them, yes, I've been clear about that since day one here." Rick had chuckled. "Right, guess that's the thing now." Devin felt Jules' eyes flick up from her pastry corner, silent solidarity, a witness. Devin logged the moment in their notes app later. Time, location, wording, no emotion, just facts. By evening, the kitchen had survived Rick's first full day, but Devin could feel the tension. They worked too hard to earn their place here, and one man's bias shouldn't be allowed to unravel that. After service, Devin walked the line, checking that everything was clean, burners off, the fryer drained. Their station was immaculate, just like always. They took one last look around and turned off the light above the prep station. The kitchen sank into silence. Devon exhaled. Tomorrow would be harder. They could feel it in their gut, but they had their apron, their knives, and their documentation. The kitchen may have belonged to Rick now, but the truth, that would belong to Devon. The first week under Chef, Rick felt like walking through smoke. Nothing visible enough to name, but it stung the eyes and left your clothes smelling like fire. Devon arrived every morning at 5:30 sharp, same as always. The kitchen opened slowly like a mechanical heart warming up, burners clicking on, dough mixers humming, knives slicing through prep boards. But ever since Rick took over, the rhythm was off. It was like music with no downbeat, anxious, unpredictable. Devon said little, observed everything. The first microaggressions had been subtle, delivered with the polish of someone who'd done this for years. "I've worked with all kinds," Rick had told the line cooks on day 2, grinning like it was a compliment. "Europeans, Koreans, vegans, you name it, you just have to train them right." On day 3, Devon overheard him say to the sommelier, the previous Suze, "Good. But she wasn't complicated." Rick knew exactly what he was doing. Devon documented every comment. Time-stamped, noted in a private Google Doc they updated from their phone between prep tasks and service runs. When no one was watching, they took photos of texts Rick left on the prep whiteboard, of receipts altered under their name, of inventory logs suddenly lost after Rick reviewed them. The real turning point came Friday night. Palette and Stone was hosting a soft opening for its spring menu, a big event with bloggers, local food writers, and a well-known regional critic. Every station had to be tight, and Devon, ever the professional, made sure the Michelin place was locked down by mid-afternoon. Jules had perfected her lemon basil creme brulee. Andre had the lamb resting just right. The team was buzzing with quiet confidence. Rick, however, was in rare form. "Hey, Devon," he mispronounced the name again like it was a personal game. "Who taught you to reduce a sauce like that? Looks like something you'd get in a vegan food truck." Devon didn't react. "It's the same reduction we've used since the fall menu." Martina signed off on it. Rick raised an eyebrow. "Well, Martina's not here anymore, is she?" More notes, another entry in the doc. When service began at 6:00 p.m., Rick stalked the pass like a wolf circling prey. He didn't expedite, he hovered, second-guessing orders, barking random adjustments, and occasionally jumping into plating to fix something no one else saw as wrong. At 6:47 p.m., the first plate went back. The lamb was undercooked, not raw, just rare enough to offend the critics seated at table 6. Rick stormed toward Andre's station. "Are you trying to tank this night?" Andre froze. Devon stepped in. "I checked it before it went out," they said. "Temp was on point." Rick turned slowly. "Oh, so you know better than the customer now." "No," Devon said calmly, "but I trust the thermometer more than guesswork." Rick took a slow breath. His face went cold. He didn't respond. Just turned, walked back to the pass, and muttered something Devon didn't catch, but Jules did. Later, she'd whisper it to Devon in the locker room. He said, "Next time I let one of them run a kitchen, shoot me." Devon didn't flinch, just nodded and added it to the document. 7:13 p.m. Devon's herb puree went missing. It had been prepped an hour ago, labeled and stored neatly in their station fridge. Now it was gone. They asked around, no one had touched it. When they opened the trash bin near the dish station, the container was there, lid off, half full. Someone had dumped it, deliberately. Devon remade it, fast, calm, no emotion, just recovery. By 8:00, the final courses were going out. The critic had snapped photos of the duck confit, nodded politely to the sommelier, and made notes in a leather-bound pad. That's when it happened. Devon had plated the scallops, seared, rested, finished with citrus foam. They double-checked the specs, garnished with chive curls, and slid it under the heat lamp. Rick walked by. He paused. Without warning, he took the edge of his palm and smeared the foam off the top. "Too much air," he said. "It's a clown dish." Devon stared. Rick grabbed a squeeze bottle and replated it himself, sloppy, uneven, garnished with a sprig of rosemary meant for the lamb. The plate went out. 3 minutes later, it came back. "Customer says the garnish doesn't match the flavor," the server said apologetically. "Also said the plating looked rushed." Rick turned to the room. "Guess who was in charge of that station?" he said loudly, looking straight at Devon. Then he added under his breath, "This is what happens when we lower the bar." Devon felt it like a slap but didn't speak. Instead, they walked into the cooler away from the team. Rick followed. The door clicked shut behind him. "You think you've got this kitchen under control?" he said, voice low now colder. Devon kept their back turned. "I'm just doing my job." "You're doing your version of the job," Rick sneered. "But let me tell you something, you don't belong in this industry, not with all your special needs." Devon turned slowly. "I belong here more than you do." That's when Rick shoved them. It wasn't hard, just a sudden jolt. Enough to knock Devin's shoulder into the shelf behind them, enough to make the steel trays rattle, and enough to leave a red mark on their arm which Devin photographed the moment Rick left. Witness, none, evidence marked in time-stamped photo, entry added immediately after returning to their locker, the rest of service blurred. Rick played nice for the critic, even smiled for a few photos. Devin kept quiet, cleaned their station, and left at midnight. They didn't go home. Instead, they sat in their car in the parking lot typing. They pulled up Rick's name, cross-referenced reviews, LinkedIn press releases. Buried in an old hospitality blog, they found a comment under an anonymous article about toxic kitchen cultures. Chef Rick Halberd made my life hell. HR never did anything. I had bruises. No one listened. Posted 2 years ago, no reply. Devin screenshotted it. Back at their apartment, Maya was asleep, textbooks fanned across the couch. Devin kissed her forehead and sat at the kitchen table, uploading their notes into a locked folder. They didn't know exactly what came next, but they knew how to build a case. By Monday, the entire kitchen moved like it was holding its breath. Rick was louder now, more entitled, as if the critics' polite silence and lack of immediate scandal gave him permission. He wore the approval like armor, strutting from station to station, tossing out orders like grenades. Cut it thinner. You call that a sear? Jesus, did someone teach you how to taste, or are you just winging it? And he never addressed Devin by name, not once, not even sarcastically, only with pronouns, incorrect ones, deliberately sharp in public. He didn't double-check the lamb. She let that sauce reduce too long. I don't care what they think, we're not running a food truck here. Each word hung in the air just long enough for the room to notice and then get swallowed by the clatter of metal and barked orders. Most of the younger staff flinched but said nothing. A few avoided eye contact entirely. Devin kept their notebook tucked in their apron pocket, wrote in it during smoke breaks in the walk-in, in the bathroom stall if necessary. Dates, times, quotes, nothing emotional, just facts. Jules noticed. You okay? She whispered one morning, icing croissant glaze as the espresso machine hissed behind her. I'm fine, Devin replied, the same way they always did. No, you're not. She looked over her shoulder to make sure no one was near. I heard what he said about your pronouns again, it's disgusting. Devin exhaled, I'm documenting. I'll back you up, she said, when the time comes. Devin nodded, then returned to their prep. Basil chiffonade, fingernail with strips, nothing else mattered right now. That night Rick pushed harder. They were slammed with a private party in the wine cellar, 15 guests, high-end dishes, coursed wine pairings. The restaurant owner was in the building. That always made Rick put on a show. You, he said, pointing at Devin in front of the entire kitchen staff, are on sauces, don't screw this up. It was a deliberate demotion. Normally, Devin ran Expo, managing timing and plating. Sauce was usually the entry-level gig, but they didn't flinch. Yes, chef. For the next 2 hours, Devin worked silently, double-checking temps, spooning foam with robotic precision. Every sauce perfect, every reduction balanced. That didn't stop Rick. At 7:42 p.m., he accidentally knocked over a tray of demi-glace prepared by Devin. It spilled across the counter, splashing onto their apron and shoes. Sloppy station, he muttered. Devin didn't reply, just cleaned it and started over. Jules saw the whole thing, so did Andre. Strike two, Devin whispered to themselves, snapping a photo of their stained apron before scrubbing it out in the utility sink. Documented. At closing, with the guests gone and the floor swept, Rick cornered Devin near the dish pit. You think you're slick, don't you? He said, voice low and sharp. Devin didn't look up from wiping the counter. I'm just doing my job. Rick leaned in closer, too close. You think your little notebook's gonna save you? He hissed. You think people care about your weird little identity project? No one gives a damn what you call yourself. You're a freak in a kitchen full of real chefs. Devin turned slowly, calmly. I've been here 4 years, my record speaks for itself. Rick's lip curled. No one cares about your record, people like you are replaceable. This industry doesn't make room for weak skin. You want respect, go cry for it on social media. He stepped forward again, this time bumping Devin's shoulder with his chest. It was subtle, plausibly deniable. But the message was clear, I can touch you, I can threaten you, and no one will stop me. Devin stepped back. I'm leaving now, they said quietly. We're done here. Rick laughed, you're done here all right, hope your resume's in good shape. Devin drove home in silence. When they reached the apartment, Maya was at the kitchen table with headphones on, studying for her midterm. She looked up and immediately froze. Your face, she said, pointing. What happened? Devin touched their cheek, red, swollen, they hadn't even noticed. Rick got close, they said simply, shoved me again, cornered me near the sink. Maya stood up furious. You're calling someone tonight. I'm documenting, Devin replied. It has to be clean, no emotion, no revenge, just truth. She sat down reluctantly but didn't argue. Together, they uploaded photos, the apron stain, the cheek redness, the journal entry scanned and time-stamped. Devin also began drafting a timeline document, key events, approximate witnesses, attached media. Then they emailed HR. Again. This time the subject line was direct. Ongoing harassment and physical intimidation, urgent. The body included bullet points, a shared Google Drive folder link with documentation, and a closing line. I am requesting a formal investigation under your workplace harassment and anti-discrimination policies, and I am prepared to escalate this to the Labor Board and EEOC if no formal action is initiated within 5 business days. They CC'd a generic inbox at a local legal nonprofit, Workplace Justice Alliance. No response expected yet, just a warning shot. The next day, Rick's behavior escalated again. He was smiling now, fake, plastic, as if he'd been advised to stay professional. But his sarcasm was weaponized. "Well, look who showed up," he said cheerfully when Devin arrived. "Didn't expect you to come back so soon. Thought you'd need a week off to journal about your feelings." Devin didn't flinch. Rick raised his voice. "You're on fish tonight. Don't screw it up, the halibut's expensive." More people heard this time. Andre glanced up, so did Jules. During prep, Rick accidentally spilled lemon juice over Devin's open spice rack. Then he laughed. Devin said nothing. Instead, they requested a sit-down with the restaurant manager, Ms. Porter. She was in her 50s, experienced, and always seemed vaguely tired. Devin chose their words carefully. "I'm submitting a formal complaint," they said. "I've already notified HR. I'd like to speak with ownership directly." Porter blinked. "That's serious." Devin handed her a printed page. "This is the timeline. It includes quotes, evidence, and potential witnesses. I'm not making threats, I just want due process, but I won't be silent while this continues." Porter skimmed it, her lips pressed into a tight line. "I'll speak with HR," she said. I didn't know it was this bad." Devin nodded. That afternoon, they noticed Rick pause when he saw Porter speaking to Jules. His jaw twitched. He looked at Devin, then turned sharply and went into the office. That night, Devin got a text, unknown number. "Watch yourself. This isn't your playground. People like you always burn out." Devin screenshotted it, logged the time, forwarded it to the Legal Alliance and HR. Then they put down their phone and walked into the kitchen. They still had scallops to prep. Devin didn't expect the text from Jules the next morning. "You need to meet someone. My cousin knows a guy who writes about toxic workplaces. I told him what's going on." Devin was mid-prep, dicing shallots with mechanical precision. The knife stuttered for just a second. They replied, "I'll talk, but off the record, not while I'm still in the kitchen." Jules responded instantly. "Got it. His name, Caleb, he's solid, white guy 40s, food journalism background. Think he wrote that big exposé on the Napa chef who got ousted last year." Devin looked around. Rick wasn't in yet. The walk-in hissed quietly behind them. The fryer clicked on. A calm before the storm. That Sunday, Devin met Caleb Worth in the back corner of a coffee shop 5 blocks from Pallet and Stone. He had a beard, square glasses, and an oversized tote filled with crumpled notepads and sticky-tabbed cookbooks. He ordered green tea. Devin ordered black coffee, no sugar. "Jules told me a bit," Caleb began, "but I want to hear it from you. I'm not interested in gossip, I want facts, patterns, paper trails, and I don't publish a thing without your consent." Devin watched him for a moment. He seemed tired. Not performative, not probing, just someone who'd seen too many restaurants rot from the inside. So they laid out the timeline, the misgendering, the demotion, the ruined sauces, the deliberate spills, the physical shove, the text message, the witnesses, the HR silence. Caleb took notes the old-fashioned way, pen and pad, no recorder, no laptop, just deliberate scribbles, a few nods, and the occasional quiet Jesus. "I need to be smart," Devin said. "I don't want revenge, I want this documented, official, airtight. If I go public, it has to lead somewhere." Caleb nodded slowly. "I've got contacts," he said. "Labor attorneys, past chefs Rick's worked with, people who have whispered but never spoken on record. I'll dig. You stay focused, document everything. Assume he'll push back." Devin exhaled. "I'm already doing that." Back at work, Rick was on edge. Something had shifted. Devin noticed it immediately. Rick no longer made eye contact. He stayed further down the line. He barked, but his barbs were less sharp, less direct. Porter had definitely spoken to him. HR too, probably, but it wasn't over. No apology, no accountability, just coiled tension. That week, Caleb sent Devin a message. Found 2 ex-line cooks from Rick's old kitchen in Chicago. One had to quit due to stress-related seizures. Other says Rick docked her pay after a conflict. Got a phone call with both this week. Devin added the names to their folder. began cross-referencing the Yelp reviews from those years. 3 mentioned hostile atmosphere. 2 referenced a bully in charge. It was building quietly, methodically, and Jules was all in. She texted Devin screenshots of the inventory log Rick altered. He changed your numbers for the duck order on Thursday. I pulled the original. Yours were correct. Andre followed with his own support. If HR asks, I'll tell them about the sauce tray. That was deliberate, everyone saw it. Devin sent everything to the legal aid group they'd contacted, Workplace Justice Alliance. A week later, they received confirmation that a case file had been opened. Formal intake complete. Then came a break Devin didn't expect. A dishwasher named Marcos, barely 20, timid and quiet, tapped Devin's shoulder in the back alley during a smoke break. I saw him shove you, he said. In the cooler. I didn't say anything because I thought you'd handle it, but I saw it. Devin stared, you're sure? Marcos nodded quickly. I didn't know what to do, but I saw, and I'll say it to anyone if they ask me now. Devin thanked him, logged the date, time, and Marcos' quote, then they made a call to Caleb. We have a witness for the physical contact, his name's Marcos. Caleb paused, then said, good, that's good, the wall's starting to crack. By Friday, Caleb had found gold. He emailed Devin a PDF. The file was titled, 2018 Termination Settlement, Confidential. It was a leak, anonymous, but real. It showed that Rick had been relieved of duties at a Michelin-rated Chicago bistro after allegations of persistent verbal abuse and intimidation. The payout was sealed. The woman, name redacted, had been an openly queer line cook. Devin's hands trembled slightly as they read the file, not from fear but recognition. This wasn't new. Rick had done this before and had been protected. They sent the document to the legal group. A few hours later, they received a message. This opens a pattern of behavior. Combined with your documentation, we can now argue systemic misconduct. We're preparing letters of inquiry. That night, Rick's mask cracked again. It started with a passive-aggressive comment about plating, this is why real chefs use real pronouns, and ended with him slamming his clipboard onto the pass. You think you're untouchable? He snapped. Because you got some little activist writing notes for you. Devin didn't respond. Rick stormed out. Porter watched him go, arms crossed, face unreadable. Devin looked up and met her gaze. Have a good night, they said calmly, and returned to garnishing the cod with preserved lemon and charred leek oil. Devin's case file was now 48 pages long. Screenshots, photos, text, witness statements, employment history, anonymous records, voice memos from Jules and Andre, a scanned note from Marcos. Caleb prepped a piece just in case, labeled draft not for publication. He promised not to release anything unless Devin approved it. But even as they built the case, Devin stayed steady. They kept showing up early, kept managing prep, kept leading by example. The other staff saw it, and slowly the energy shifted. Jules started referring to Devin as Chef D again like she used to when Martina was around. Andre began following their plating without question. Marcos nodded at them each time he clocked in. Something was rebuilding, not in Rick's image, but in Devin's. The folder Devin kept now had a name, Case File Rick Halberd. It was color-coded, meticulously organized, witness statements in blue, HR communications in yellow, inventory discrepancies in green. The printouts stacked neatly in a zippered binder they kept at home, backed up 3 times across encrypted cloud drives. If anything ever happened, an accusation, a firing, a disappearance of records, they'd be ready. This was no longer just about survival. It was about truth. And truth, like a perfect reduction, took time. Caleb sent another message Monday morning. Just got off the phone with a lawyer who represented a former sous chef under Rick in San Francisco. Guess what? Almost identical story. She was gay. He misgendered her. Blew up on the line, fired her for insubordination after she documented his behavior, settled in arbitration. Devin felt the chill run through their chest. Again, another victim, another buried case, but now they had patterns, verifiable ones. They forwarded the info to Workplace Justice Alliance, whose legal staff replied by end of day. This qualifies as a systemic misconduct investigation. We'll be sending a demand letter to the restaurant ownership group within the week. That was the moment things became real. No longer whispers in backrooms or texts on locked phones. No longer scribbled quotes or red marks on their arm. Now it had a paper trail. Now it had names, legal weight, signatures. At Pallet and Stone, Rick was unraveling. His comments turned more erratic. He'd spent the past week alternating between forced politeness and impulsive rage. He barked orders in the morning, then disappeared into his office during peak prep. He nitpicked plating, then walked out halfway through dinner rush, leaving Devin to run Expo. By Wednesday, he was making mistakes, bad ones. He forgot to order halibut, blamed the supplier, then blamed Devin. You were supposed to confirm the invoice, he snapped. "I wasn't on fish that day, chef," Devin replied calmly. "You were." Jules handed Devin the printed invoice. Devin held it up wordlessly. Rick's initials were on the signature line. He didn't speak, just turned away and slammed the office door behind him. Andre whispered, "Chef's cracking." Devin didn't answer, just logged the incident and updated the invoice folder in the drive. That weekend, the restaurant's parent company received a formal complaint package from Workplace Justice Alliance. It included a full timeline, over a dozen corroborating testimonies, 2 anonymous statements from former employers, and Devin's compiled file. The legal letter requested immediate investigation, protection of all relevant employees, and disciplinary review of Rick's behavior. They CC'd the State Labor Board, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission (EEOC), and 2 local advocacy groups specializing in LGBTQ plus workplace discrimination. By Monday, the restaurant's legal team was on the phone with Porter. By Tuesday, HR finally responded to Devin. The email was clinical, polite, concerned. "We take these allegations seriously and have opened an internal review. You will be contacted for a formal interview within the next 48 hours. Please do not discuss this matter with other staff during the process." Devin saved the email in 4 places. They smiled just a little as they returned to slicing heirloom tomatoes. Caleb sent a link the next day. "Hey, just FYI, I didn't publish anything, but people are starting to talk." It was a forum thread buried deep in the comments of a food blog post titled "Kitchen Cultures: The Myth of the Rockstar Chef." The thread was titled, "Anyone work with Rick Halbert?" There were 26 replies. Half of them were anonymous, but the stories were the same. "He screamed at me for asking for a bathroom break. He kept calling me princess when I told him I was trans. He shorted our overtime pay, and HR said it was a rounding issue. He told me I needed to look straighter if I wanted to work front of house." Devin didn't post, they didn't need to, the internet was waking up on its own. The final turning point came in the form of a flash drive. Jules handed it to Devin during a shift change. "Security cam backup," she whispered. "Andre's cousin works tech, pulled the walk-in footage from the night Rick pushed you." Devin stared at the tiny black device. "Are you serious?" Jules nodded. "It's blurry, but you can see the shelf shake, and you step back rubbing your arm, time-stamped, clear as day." They uploaded the footage immediately, sent it to the lawyers. Within hours, the legal team replied. "This confirms physical intimidation. Combined with the witness statement and pattern evidence, it justifies immediate protective action. We're drafting an injunction request." That night, Devin walked out of the kitchen with the smallest smile they'd shown in weeks, but Rick wasn't done. The next day, he filed an internal complaint against Devin: disruptive behavior, insubordination, creating a toxic work environment. The irony was so thick, Devin almost laughed. Instead, they took the complaint seriously, sent it to their attorney, highlighted every line that contradicted documented facts, responded point by point in a formal statement attached with supporting materials. This wasn't a kitchen brawl, it was a case file. Rick didn't understand that yet. 2 days later, HR called both Devin and Rick in for interviews. Separately, Devin's lasted over an hour. They answered every question, provided every document, clarified every event. Rick's took 20 minutes, then he left the building. He didn't return that night. Porter came to Devin afterward. "He's on administrative leave," she said carefully. Devin nodded once. "Understood." "Your station's still Expo tonight," Porter added. "I trust you've got it." "I do," Devin said. They turned back to the line, called out times, managed the pass, garnished with edible flowers and micro-herbs. And for the first time in months, the kitchen felt like a kitchen again, not a battlefield. The official investigation began on a Thursday. Devin got the email at 7:12 a.m. just as they were checking the veal stock on the back burner. Subject: formal inquiry initiated, employee conduct investigation. From Corporate Counsel, Montclair Hospitality Group. You are listed as a principal party in an ongoing investigation regarding workplace misconduct. This will involve interviews, witness testimony, and a full HR audit of the restaurant in question. Please retain any related documents and be prepared to provide supporting materials. Legal counsel may be present. It was real now, more real than any kitchen shift, any spice rack sabotage, or any muttered slur behind the fryer. It had entered the realm of policy, law, and public scrutiny. The thing Rick always thought would protect him, his institution, was now holding him under the microscope. Devin read the email twice, then again, then put their phone away, washed their hands, and returned to prepping garlic confit for the night's specials. By that evening, the restaurant buzzed with quiet tension. Rick's name hadn't been mentioned since his leave, but his absence filled the space louder than any presence. Nobody knew if he'd be back. Some hoped he would. Others, like Andre, Jules, and most of the junior staff, prayed he wouldn't. Porter called a staff meeting during lineup. "We've begun a formal process regarding past conduct. I can't share details, but I will say this. If anyone is approached by HR or investigators, be honest. That's all we ask." Devon stood still, arms folded behind their back, Chef White's pressed and clean. They caught Jules' eye across the prep line. She nodded once. Caleb sent an encrypted file that night. "Don't open this on work devices, just review. These are public records." Devon waited until they were home. Maya was asleep on the couch, a textbook half open beside her. They clicked the file open. It contained 5 PDFs, public court filings, redacted settlements, and old employment reviews pulled from legal databases. 4 of them were linked to Rick. 3 mentioned racial or gender-based misconduct. 2 named corporate settlements. 1 included testimony from a former HR representative who said she'd been pressured to destroy internal complaint memos. Devon stared at the screen. How many people had tried to stop him? How many had been buried under silence, paperwork, and exhaustion? Not this time. Within a week, 3 more employees from Pallet and Stone came forward. A barback who overheard Rick call Jules a dyke with an attitude. A prep cook who'd been forced to stay overtime without pay. A former hostess who quit after Rick told her to smile more or work somewhere else. All 3 submitted sworn statements to Workplace Justice Alliance. One of them, the hostess, also spoke anonymously to the Portland Current, a local paper that had been monitoring Caleb's food blog since his post about hostile kitchens went semi-viral. The paper reached out to Devon. They declined to speak on the record, for now, but the story ran anyway. Headline: Top Chef Accused of Abuse. Sources detail toxic culture at Pallet and Stone. The story was careful, legally vetted, but damning. It referenced a pattern of complaints, verifiable misconduct, and systemic failures within the Montclair group to protect marginalized employees. Rick's name was there. So was Devon's, anonymized as a respected sous chef of 4 years. The photo below the fold was of the restaurant's exterior. Empty, dim, quiet. The backlash came quick. Yelp reviews started stacking. "Came here for the food, stayed for the kitchen abuse, will not return." "Protect your staff before you lose your diners." "Shame on management for letting this go on." Instagram and Twitter caught wind. An anonymous staffer posted a TikTok of Rick berating a line cook from weeks ago, just the audio muffled but unmistakable. The video racked up 180,000 views in 2 days. A local LGBTQ+ advocacy group called for a boycott of the restaurant chain. Then national food blogs picked up the Current's article and spun it into syndication. Devon's inbox began to fill with requests for interviews, for statements, for solidarity. They didn't respond. They weren't finished yet. The investigation hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday afternoon held in a neutral conference room downtown. Neutral walls, neutral carpet, cold water in a pitcher, 1 folding table, 2 attorneys, 1 HR rep, 1 facilitator. Devon sat straight, blazer buttoned, notes in front of them like a closing argument. Jules testified, Andre too. Marcos, the dishwasher, came in nervously and left to quiet applause. Then came the documentation. The footage from the walk-in cooler, the altered inventory logs, the offensive texts, the fake complaint Rick filed against Devon, the flash drive with Rick's signature on falsified invoices. The receipts for missed overtime pay. It was a clean, quiet flood. By the time Devon finished speaking, the HR rep wasn't even making eye contact. Rick arrived an hour later for his portion. He was pale. The sharp lines of his tailored jackets looked wilted. His hair was uncombed. His eyes darted constantly. He tried to deny, tried to blame culture shifts. Claimed a new generation doesn't understand how real kitchens work. He smirked when asked about pronoun usage. Then they played the walk-in footage. He didn't speak again. The decision came within a week. Rick was terminated, effective immediately. The company released a statement citing confirmed workplace violations and promising structural reform to ensure the safety and dignity of all employees. Rick's professional contacts distanced themselves almost instantly. Culinary magazines edited his name out of upcoming issues. Restaurants that once courted him quietly purged his dishes from their menus. His website went down. Devon stayed up. A week after the ruling, Pallet and Stone reopened under new management. Porter offered Devon the executive chef role. They declined. Instead, Devon took their severance and quietly, with help from a local investors network and Jules as their pastry lead, rented a small industrial space in the East District. Crumb and Brine was written on the door in matte gold letters. No frills, no chef's table, just good food and a team that cooked with respect. Their sister helped design the logo. Their lawyer helped build the handbook. their former coworkers applied for jobs. And on opening night, with the grill fired, sauces reducing, and laughter echoing across the new tile floor, Devon did something they hadn't done in months. They let go of the tension, of the fight, of the fear, not because the system was fixed, but because they had made it bend even just a little. The first review of Crumb and Brine came out 2 weeks after opening. It was quiet, thoughtful, almost poetic. No spectacle, no ego, just food that tastes like it was made by someone who believes in every ingredient and every person behind the line. Crumb and Brine is more than a restaurant, it's a reclamation. Devon read it once, then once more aloud to Jules, who teared up halfway through her lemon custard tart. The kitchen was small, barely enough space for 5, but every inch of it felt earned. Unlike Palette and Stone, there were no secret power games, no dark corners behind the walk-in, no hushes in place of words. The team was diverse, intentional, chosen. Marcos ran prep and dishwasher duty, now full-time and paid fairly. Andre helped with menu consulting on the weekends. Maya finished with school, managed front of house during her gap year while prepping for grad applications. Devon stood at the heart of it all, not just as chef, but as anchor. The walls, once silent witnesses to abuse, were now lined with sound. Music from the back speaker, laughter during cleanup, the scrape of forks on clean plates. And though no one said Rick's name anymore, his shadow was long gone. In the months following the investigation, things moved quickly. Rick's termination sparked broader attention. The Montclair Hospitality Group, once praised for its elevated culinary innovation, found itself under investigation by the State Labor Board. Devon's case had been the spark, but the fire revealed a history of cover-ups, HR suppression, and quietly paid settlements across multiple properties. 3 more complaints surfaced from employees at 2 of Montclair's other restaurants, both citing misgendering, racial slurs, and wage theft. 2 of those employees used Devon's legal team, now known citywide for their role in the Halberd case. And for the first time in its history, the EEOC filed a public citation against Montclair, mandating they implement bias and sensitivity training across all locations, a third-party auditing system for harassment complaints, anonymous hotline protections with legal follow-up guarantees, back pay and compensation packages for verified labor violations. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, it was change. The biggest shift, however, came from the people. Devon started getting emails. Some were from other chefs, queer, trans, non-binary, who'd been forced out quietly just like they almost were. I never knew we could fight back. Thank you for showing us that documentation matters. I saved every text too. Maybe it's time I speak up. Some messages came from parents. My daughter wants to be a chef. I'm scared, but now I know people like you exist. One message came from an old cook from Rick's first kitchen in 2004. I never got justice. I'm too tired now, but I watched what you did, and I cried, because I wish I'd had your courage. Devon didn't reply to all of them. They couldn't, but they saved everyone. And when they finally spoke publicly, months after the dust had settled, it wasn't through a press release. It was in a panel discussion hosted by the Culinary Equity Alliance, titled Breaking the Brigade, Dismantling Harm in Kitchen Culture. Devon sat next to 2 other chefs who'd survived discrimination. One had faced racial harassment. The other had been fired for requesting pregnancy accommodations. The room was full, quiet, listening. Devon spoke clearly, evenly. No one goes into a kitchen expecting to fight for their humanity. We fight to be seen, to be heard, and most of all to be safe. For a long time that wasn't the standard, but it can be. There was no applause cue, no bravado, just nods and notes, and maybe, just maybe, a shift in the room. Back at Crumb and Brine, the rhythm of the restaurant became its own kind of justice. Every plate served was a continuation of the fight. Every fair paycheck was an act of defiance. Every name remembered, every pronoun respected, every voice heard in the pre-service huddle, it all added up. One Thursday, during the late prep lull, Maya leaned against the stainless steel counter, sipping tea from a chipped mug. You realize you changed the whole system, right? She said casually, scrolling through Yelp. Devon raised an eyebrow while trimming radishes. Not the whole system, they said, just a crack in it. That's how light gets in, Maya replied, grinning. Devon smiled and handed her a slice of pickled fennel. Needs more salt, she said after chewing. Devon laughed. Still my toughest critic. Final closure came when Montclair offered a settlement, not a payout for silence, a real one that included acknowledgement of wrongdoing, formal apology, and a commitment to fund the Kitchen Justice Initiative, a nonprofit aimed at training chefs and hospitality workers on equity, safety, and worker rights. They offered Devon a position on the advisory board. Devon accepted under one condition: the initiative would be chef-led, not corporate-directed. We'll do it our way, they told the lawyer. Or we won't do it at all. They signed the contract that same week. On the one-year anniversary of the night Rick was fired, Crumb and Brine hosted a private dinner. Not a media event, not a fundraiser, just the people who helped hold the line. Jules brought wine. Andre brought his daughter. Marcos brought homemade tortillas. Maya made everyone cry with a toast about big siblings who protect more than just family. Devin made duck confit crispy, delicate, finished with preserved lemon and leek oil. The same dish Rick had ruined, the same dish that came back to the kitchen with complaints. This time the plate was silent when cleared, nothing left behind but bones and sauce streaks. Devin stepped outside while the others laughed inside the kitchen. The street was quiet, cool breeze, early spring. They pulled out their phone and opened the folder again. Case file Rick Halberd. Still there, still organized, still backed up, but no longer needed. They closed it, archived it, then stood still for a moment, listening to the hum of laughter from behind the kitchen door. It sounded like healing, and hope, and the promise that in kitchens to come, those fires would burn a little brighter, a little fairer, and far more just.